Thank you very much for joining me on The Voice of Job Seekers. This is Mark, and welcome if this is the first time. And if you've joined us before, welcome back. In case you didn't know, this is the last episode for this season. It's May, and I'll be publishing this on the Tuesday, the third Tuesday of May. And this is my baby that I've been working with for the last 8 years. Next September 12th, will be the first edition of the show for the next season. That would be season number 9. 9 years in doing this. Really, in theory, depending on how you look at it, this is already season number 9, but year number 9, but season number 9 is coming up. So, been doing this for a while, and I usually take a hiatus. It's a lot of work to do a podcast. And it's a lot of work to do live streams, videos, do social media, speak, train, guest appearance somewhere. Been busy this year, and just because it was a pandemic doesn't mean I didn't have a lot to do. In fact, I've been busier more than I've had in recent years. So a lot of things go on here, as well as my other responsibilities, let's say. I don't have to go into it. The most important thing here is that we are trying to, and I am trying to give you the best job search information as possible. Strategies, tactics, tips, all of that. This week, for the last episode of the year, I want to do a montage of podcasts that I've been on recently. And I'll start with September of the fall of 2020, and it goes to May 2021. And there are a number of, I picked 7 of them to feature here on the show, just so you can hear a little snippet, grab some information, some intel. I believe that would be helpful to you, and then go ahead and apply it. And of course, you can always continue to follow me on LinkedIn, thevoiceofjobseekers.com. The podcast will also be available throughout the summer. Won't be any new episodes, although I've been entertaining possibly publishing a couple of the live streams during the summer, which I might do. It will just appear. I won't have a lot to say to you guys, but just so that you'll have some more tactical information as we move forward into the fall of 2021. Things are opening up a little bit more during this COVID season, and hopefully is coming to an end, although I think we're going to have remnants of it to carry on. But ultimately, I want you guys to enjoy the shows. And here are the shows that I've been on. I'm going to name them. I'm not going to talk about the topics and what I asked them. You're going to see in the show notes as well, probably just the show and where to get it from. But ultimately, my goal here is for you to listen and be able to grab information, or just be informed, or just enjoy what I've been doing throughout. So the shows and the hosts, Hillary Sutton does a show called Grace and Hustle that I was on last December. And again, I should say that they won't be particularly in this order, but here are some of the shows. Jack Kelly, who I co-host live stream with, that now goes to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Our show is called Job Seeker Nation. That's with the hashtag. And should you want to listen to his podcast, where he has a boatload of guests, you can go to recruiter.io to find his show. And we had a great conversation, and that's really special. We got a chance to talk about diversity and inclusion issues, and what the experience is for a lot of professionals. So I hope you get a lot out of that. Then I'm going to point you to a show by Sanal Ball. It's called Supercharged Fridays. It's a live stream show, actually, and it's a big audience on YouTube. Incredible. I think at this point it's 33,000 plus. And the show got a lot of views when we did on LinkedIn, and she streams to the same platforms I do. But she's been doing it for a long time, and love her show, love her personality. I would say it's very much an international show because she gets international engagement on a show. And I spent about an hour and a half with her on her show. It was a great time. It's one of the best times I've ever had. So you definitely want to be a part of that. I was on a show called Your Career GPS, or Your GPS Career. It's a podcast, and you'll probably enjoy that if you're a young professional, especially. And Brad Minton, who is one of the co-hosts, and Cassie is his other host, were asking me about the advice I would give young people. So I definitely enjoyed that. I was on a show called Empowerment Talks. That was out of India, and they did something unique. They had a YouTube show their show streamed to YouTube and to Facebook and maybe some other destinations I might have missed. But Yesh is the founder of that. They have quite a large community. What they did was for 150 plus days in a row, including Saturdays and Sundays, they had empowerment talks to encourage their audience. And by that, they were able to get a few thousand folks involved in watching their stream. And I was happy to be invited. It was a lot of fun. So I hope you'll listen to that snippet, that little short snippet. And there I kind of give a little background about how I began and all that kind of stuff. So that is not as a big a deal. Monique Betty. She has a podcast called Coach Tuesdays with Coach Mo, or Tuesdays with Coach Mo. I believe that's the name of the title. Enjoyed her audience. She reaches out, and she's actually a coach of coaches, which is kind of unique to to me at least. And she provides great amount of resources for a lot of her executive and mid-level management and higher audience. We got a chance to talk about what the world's going to look like from an executive recruiter. Now, I've never been a recruiter, but I have worked with, have been on panels with enough of them at this particular point where I gave her my view of what an executive recruiter will best look like these days. And a lot of it, you can glean something from that. And hopefully you'll enjoy that show. The last show will be this will definitely be the last snippet that I'll provide, is the show I did on Sirius XM, Dr. Dawn's on Careers, as part of the Wharton School of Business radio programming. Of course, it's not really radio in the traditional sense, but it's their programming they provide by satellite radio, which satellite might be a misnomer, depending on who you talk to. But we engaged into our long show. It was very, not only just, it was just about information, but it was very entertaining. So if you want to skip to like after 11 minutes here, if you happen to catch this in the middle, you can go ahead and start listening to the shows that were on. I don't know if I'll put the timestamps on it, but I want you to really enjoy what is going on in the world of job search and careers. If you haven't been in tune, if you have been in tune, be watching me, I'm always talking about it. So thank you again for another great season. Want to invite you to join our mailing list, and then join the secret Facebook club, and also enjoy and join the Saturday sessions I'm going to have during the summer. It's going to be 4 sessions. It'll be completely free of charge, and it's just talking about job search. There'll be some individual coaching, as well as some very, very short lessons involved as well. But I try to make it more about customizing it to each individual's needs. We usually have a few people join us every Saturday. It'll run from May this coming Saturday, which is May 21st, and or is that 22nd? It'll be on Saturday, whatever that is, and it'll go all the way until August. That I think it's the 4th August and Saturday that will end it there. But this is a chance to get some free coaching, encouragement, and be able to join us on the show, and well, not on the show, but just so that you'll enjoy the network. And then to the Job Lab, which is the secret Facebook page and the secret group, is available for those who join the newsletter. Then you can join the lab in both places. The Facebook page is available all year round. So I'm posting there fairly regularly, and hopefully people will also chime in with their questions during the year, during the summer and during the year, and so that everybody could benefit. In the meantime, thank you very much again for another great season. Love having you listen in. I hope that if there are things that strike you positively, that you'll write a review on Apple Podcasts, or really any of the places where you can write a review. Doesn't matter. And I want you to be able to get a lot out of it. I loved your input. If you have any topics that you'd like for me to cover, like on the blog, please feel free to put that in. In the meantime, a long introduction, but we haven't talked in a while. So again, you're invited to skip it over if you want. Thanks, and look forward to seeing you in September. In the meantime, enjoy the show.
My next one was, what are your tips for networking and finding new opportunities in a world that is still social distancing? Like, people used to go to happy hours, or people would go to conferences or whatever. So, what are your tips for standing out, when all you really have is maybe the online space?
Sure. And the online space is the only thing that you have an access to. And I know some people live in places where the next door neighbor is a mile away. And honestly, that's okay, because online, everybody's at your fingertips. You have a phone, you have Zoom, you have LinkedIn, you have Twitter, you have all those. And I think at this point, anything could be a great networking spot. If you want to excel your networking abilities, then using LinkedIn and being active on it is going to give you a 360 approach. Not only you're looking to connect with people, but people are looking to connect with you. They may not know your name right now, but they're looking to connect with you because of, it could be your personality, it could be your skills, it could be all three. But the more active you are, the more visible you're going to be on LinkedIn and also all the other social networks, and you shouldn't rule any of them out. You can concentrate on one at a time. You can do the 5 big ones, which is what LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and for a lot of people, TikTok, which could be useful as well. You just have to find the way you communicate, what's going to be the best, and how you connect with people, and consider that. But LinkedIn, definitely, that's where it's expected. Everything is on a professional level where you are looking to reach up. And
Yeah.
everybody on LinkedIn is looking to reach up.
That is true. That is true. So that begun to answer my next question, but I want to ask it to you specifically.
Sure.
What is most important, or what's your biggest piece of advice about a job seeker's online presence? Is it that they need to be on LinkedIn? Is it that they need to have a real awareness of their privacy settings so they don't, post something embarrassing that anybody could see? What's kind of like like number one piece of advice when it comes to an online presence?
Well, the hand can't say automatically that I don't belong to the body, and neither can the head, neither can the neck. I think all that you said, privacy plus LinkedIn, is one thing. You have to protect your privacy. That's a must. But there's so much that you do on LinkedIn, you don't have to necessarily worry about your privacy, except for the people that you may let pass that first layer. And I think when you connect with people, you have to decide how much you're willing to reveal about yourself. Of course, if you're too embarrassed to put something online, you should. But really, it could be as simple as updating, giving status updates several times a week. If you're serious and you're looking to really be visible every day, once a day is optimized. You don't have to be like me, where there's some days you do 2 or 3 times a day. That's insane, but that's part of what I do. I try to be as helpful as I possibly can. And if you're coming from a point of being helpful to people, you can make a much more indelible mark on your online presence rather than to be noticed. So the difference in being noticed and being helpful is that some people are being helpful just to be noticed. And that's kind of a shallow approach, and people can smell that right, or well, I should say a lot of people can smell that right away. And then you can be helpful, which means a lot of times that you're not looking for reciprocation. And that's probably the fine line between the two. Then you can make you can really connect with a lot of people that way.
Because like what you're saying is that from the person who has a certain name, and you get the resume and you make a presumption about them, all the way to a CEO. And if you have a vision of a CEO, that's just going to formulate, you say that's going to formulate your decisions in terms of hiring, because you think, okay, this is what that person should look like. Like not only CEOs, like CEOs usually are like 6'3". Seriously, there's a certain type too. Yeah. So it's not even a color. It's like it fits a certain model of what you see. It's like, I think maybe also a lot of the movies perpetuates it too. You say, okay, this is what this person should look like. This is what this person should look like.
Right.
And all of a sudden people are like, oh, okay, I'm used to this. So that's what it's going to keep doing, I guess.
Yes. And, I think when we get down to it, one is that there are uncomfortable steps that people are willing to take, like pronouncing somebody's name. If somebody has a complicated name, the first thing you think, well, I can't even pronounce this, and then you start to make other presumptions as to how your kids are going to be able to spell the names you give them, and you put that to the side, and not really even looking at that person's qualified or not. Now, you can make the assumption that somebody isn't qualified, but you just looked at the name. And I know for a fact that has happened because I've seen it happen. And in fact, I'll even say that some of it even bleeds over to where Black people are part of the systemic racism problem, because they've heard somebody else say it, so they think that's good for me to say it too. Say, oh, this person, we can't even pronounce his name either. Or better yet, if you're a person that even has, the only chance of management you get is if it's over people who are just Black and not where it's a diverse or even just all white. I mean, it runs in so many ways, and there's many the presumptions are often made, not even thinking about what it really means. And so for a lot of us, we're saying, well, this is what this really means. And people look at their intent and automatically think they're innocent, when we're not saying, that you're going to be, this is a trial here. We're saying, give a second and third thought to what you're ultimately doing, is that you're just taking one part of me. Another thing is addresses. People look at addresses. They know the city, Chicago. They know certain parts of Chicago are going to be mostly Black or mostly Hispanic or mostly this. But if they get somebody with my name, but notice that the neighborhood I come from, then of course they say, well, it may take them a little bit long to get here. So we can't hire for this position. We're downtown. We like somebody who's close. Of course, somebody who's close is going to, in downtown Chicago, likely they're going to be white. So, it runs so much more deeper than an hour can allow.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think people should be aware that it happens in the job search. And for Black people for many years and people of color, but especially for Black people, you don't get the first shot. You don't get the first assumption that there's a possibility that this person's qualified because based on even a name, address, or even maybe where I worked before. If I was a manager for a South Side company with 3 or 4 people and they were all Black, and the company is a Black publication, I won't have a shot getting an editor's job at a white publication because your assumptions are say, well, you just did these, you had these 3 or 4 people under you. You stated on your resume, and you want to show that kind of as a result, as a way that say, yeah, I managed people before, but you don't get the shot because that's what it is. Now I understand the dynamic too. People look at, for instance, is you can, and everybody can jump on this, is that, people who work for Microsoft have a better chance to work at Google rather than somebody who used to work for ask.com. That's the way it is. People see you are aligned with the companies that you've worked for and worked with. So, in the same way, but unfortunately, people don't make that extra connection or make the connection that, someone of color is more just as qualified. Let's bring them both in. Let's give them both a shot, give them the same consideration. You don't necessarily have to hire us all the time, but doggone, how long does that go on? How long does that go on in a company where there's 800 people and only 5% of them are Black or Hispanic or Asian?
We have a few questions. So we have from,
Sure.
and you got to forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the name, Sweta Regni, about the salary gap is real and people need to talk about salary. Why isn't it even confidential?
Yes.
Does that factor into it, do you think, too, in terms of salary? So if you get the job, do you feel you might not be paid the same as somebody else?
Yes, because often those jobs are given, they consider experience and not the job. So therefore, if you and I apply to the same job, but you have more experience, you deserve more based on your experience alone. Experience doesn't always equal to competency. It's just, and that's where, that's where we all kind of had to grow up over here in the last 25, 30 years is, if I have 5 years of experience, uh, and somebody else has 10, but yet I have all the relevant education, but this person has 10 years of experience. How would you know unless you have a chance to compare? Or you better yet, are they going to do a different job because they have more experience than I would? No, but that's an assumption.
I wonder,
Yeah, that's, I think the whole crux of the thing that you want to communicate is have that eye on the other opportunities. It's make it as a lifestyle to look for the other potential employees that you have, how they are treating their employees. And a lot of us don't do it because we kind of get into comfortable with our current employer. And until and unless we have been made redundant or we are so much frustrated to leave our current job, we actually don't put that job searching hat on and we just flow with the flow and whatever it is. You are an award-winning blogger and podcast. So what exactly do you talk about? Is it about the job search or do you do holistic, you cover other aspects of the everything of life, or what sort of things do you do on your
Great
podcast?
question. This is the 9th year of my blog. This is the 8th year of my podcast.
Wow.
And I really just started this year, putting more emphasis on videos, even though I've had videos. So really, the hat that I wear, I write for other businesses. I write about job search and career and workplace. That's what my content has been about in the past, but probably 90% of it is about job search and about job search techniques and how to navigate interviews.
And where does it the market focused? Is it market focused or is it US focused or it's
It's
global?
it is U.S. focused, even though I have some international guests on my show in the past to give us a view. Um, I even had a woman named Paris Cutler on my show from Australia, who is amazing. Gave a perspective on career search in her country, in her region. But she works around the world, as I have audiences from around the world. But I think most people, if they're concerned internationally, they want to move from one market, one country to another, like
True.
from Dubai to Canada. They want to know how to get. I get a lot of those questions as well. But to answer your questions, it is mostly job search first focus. I do tackle the world of careers and workplace as well in the total conversation.
But I just want to go back to the point that was you mentioned about the switching of the locations, like for somebody to switch from Dubai to Canada, India to
Yes.
Dubai, Dubai to London. And there's always this, oh, I'm frustrated from this place. Let's go and do something at some other
Yes.
place or do. So what do you want to give that tip to? How do a lot of people approach the individual agencies or, the job search and all those things? So what do you give
Fair
some
enough.
recommendation or tips to those people?
I would say first understand what the market is and where you want to move. Even just as important, you want to know what skills and requirements they may have. If you can't just be a doctor from Dubai coming to the U.S. and still be a doctor, you've got to go through a process. Usually, it's residency, but it's worth it for folks. Important, I would say the first two.
Mark's generosity. Payal, I see your question, sweetheart. I will come to you in a minute. I want to talk to Ridwan for a second because I see there's a conversation going on. If you have more than 20 years experience and you lost your job and you've been unemployed for 8 months, which is hello, welcome to the club, which is true for many of us. And now you're getting a job, which is much below your previous position and it will impact your resume. Should I take the offer to stop the increasing gap or wait for the right position according to experience and expertise? And I see that we have an answer in here. It's lovely when people help each other out, right? And Gavin says, hey, hold on if you still can. Once you kind of blemish your CV, it's a little bit more challenging to get back to your previous level that you were at. And Gavin, appreciate your point of view. What do you think, Mark?
A bridge job can be a blessing or a curse. And what I mean is that it may take longer for a job that you don't care much about, but you got to pay the bills in some kind of way, right? So you have to kind of choose if you're going to take a bridge job, that you're going to do it until that next job comes along. But if you're not getting, if that bridge job is something that is equal to what you have, then you might be able to leverage that. In a sense, if it's something where you're being underemployed, then that can be as bad as being unemployed.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something you don't like and you're not making quite the money. You're not able to pay everything, but you're paying something. I mean, there's a lot of thoughts on that, and it depends what you're going to value at this particular time. If it's giving you some experience that you need and you're underemployed, you can leverage that.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you didn't say whether it's grossly underpaying or not, but I think if it's depending on the economy or where you're at, it might be. I would say it only be worth the wait
Yeah,
if you've got something on the horizon. If you don't have anything on the horizon, you're talking about possibly another 2, 3, 4 months before something would actually come up. The interview
exactly.
process here in America, some companies are going through 8 to 10 rounds of interviewing, and that's not including the final round. So
It's
that could
common,
take
Mark, outside
that
the US as well. It's very
that
common to keep it long.
that could take 4 to 6 weeks or longer. Do you really want to wait that out just to see and take it? That's a risk. That's not a risk that you can mitigate after you've turned down an opportunity. So you've got a lot of factors to weigh out. If you take the job where you're underemployed, at least you're starting to do something, and
Right,
maybe you can
right,
do some other things to leverage. Other
right.
than that, you're taking a risk that you may not get anything else for a long time. So
It's so tricky,
it's
right,
hard to say.
Ridwan? And Mark, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right.
And bridge jobs are not easy, but I love it. You can either look at it as a blessing or a curse. It can be a blessing because it helps to take care of you and your family. Let's face it, most of us have run out of savings. How much can you deep dive into your savings and your unemployment
After
benefits?
8 months. After
It
eight
dries
months. That's a
out. The well
long
dries out.
that's
So
a
you
long time.
exactly. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I would add to that because I remember Sarah Johnston, and I'm going to tag her. She had a post on this a few months ago, and it went crazy viral, and people had some really
Mhm.
strong views. I was like, at the end of the day, you're not going to lead with this for the next job, right? This was something you took to pay bills. We understand that. So I want to ask Jack Kelly. No, Jack, I'm not stealing Mark from you. He is all
Hey,
yours.
Jack.
I will leave you guys and you can do your bromance later. But Jack,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I hope you're watching, as a recruiter, because you see a lot of stuff happening in the market. As a recruiter, if you can tell us about Ridwan's query, and particularly the fact that, hey, Ridwan, you're in Saudi Arabia, which is the land of opportunity, right? Because of oil. Would you reject a candidate or have two thoughts about this person if they have taken a job which is a little bit unrelated, or at a lower level than what they had? Interested to hear your point of view, Jack. So if you have a few
And
seconds,
if I could,
tell us what you think.
if I could add something here too, is that what's a great situations that I've seen over the pandemic, since we've been in the pandemic, people taking their side gigs to another level. And to me, it seems like the side gig is really the job now. And I've seen people where they've gotten the side gig to where that if they take a job, it would be a step back because it was because it was reaping so much more than the regular job that they have. And when you don't have anything, you've got something that's great. But it really is a great experience when you have a side gig or you have a business, or that if you do have something where you can amount enough experience and education that's useful to a company, you have choices then. So, it would be the actual business can be your experience now. And you can even use the advantages that the government's even here giving with the different types of loans to really make to advance that
Good,
even further.
good. So Ridwan, we
So-
have proof, right? We have at least one recruiter who agrees with us under
Right,
these
not during these
circumstances.
circumstances.
Exactly, under extenuating circumstances. I like the use of the word. Recruiters understand this. Job seekers need to do what they need to do. And if recruiters / hiring managers have two thoughts about you, honestly, listen, buddy, times are going to change. We can smell it. Jack mentioned it in a comment to me some time ago.
Right.
Things are changing. Things are opening up. You're going to have choices. You're going to have your pick. It reminds me of, do you remember Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman? And they're like, we will not serve you. And, we don't talk to people like you. And she's like, get lost. I'm going to go and I'm going to do better.
That's so interesting that you bring that up, but I think the difference in the modern job search today, people have an opportunity. To me, I think of the other Julia Roberts movie, My Best Friend's Wedding. I don't know if you
Yes.
remember the scene where Cameron Diaz's character is upset that her about to be husband was starting to look at, or it was perceived that she was
Yeah.
interested in
Yeah.
in Julia Roberts, so
Yes.
she starts to run away, and Dylan's character starts to chase her, and Julia Roberts' character starts to chase him.
Yes,
Now,
I remember that scene, and they're looking at her, and she's like, "Ah, she's from New York."
right, right, but in that chase, when Julia didn't catch up or whatever, she went back and talked to her friend and says, "Do you realize what went on there? You know, she was running away from him. He was running away from Julia to run to her. But
Yes.
who's chasing you?"
Who's chasing
And
you?
the idea of the modern job search is to get somebody to chase you. It's
Yes.
not just for you to be the one to chase. You want other people to chase you. You can't do that if you're not creating a demand for your work. You're not able to do that, and your ability, if you're not doing anything. You got to start doing some things, show your work, and start to prove that you can do those jobs before another job even becomes an issue for you, that
Yeah.
it's already out there, so you can create demand for your work by doing the work even before
Correct.
even considering who's going to hire you.
Beautiful. You've given us something to think about. Who's chasing you? Because
Yes.
you need to take a little bit control of your career. And
I love that you called it an adventure in job searching, because that really is what our careers are, an adventure. And like you said, you're reinventing yourself constantly and making new decisions. So I love that. And I would love to hear a little bit more about the platform that you have. You call it Voice of Job Seekers. So can you define voice for us and where you came up with that name?
That's very interesting. You should ask. Not that I wasn't expecting it, but and first of all, it's actually the voice of job seekers. And a funny story, I actually, when I came up, actually somebody called me that on Twitter.
Oh,
They said, "Thank you." After reading an article, they said, "Thank you for being the voice of job seekers." Now, I had a blog before then. That blog has been dissolved, but they found and said, "Thank you for being." I said, that could be a name. My only mistake, I didn't like it and save that tweet forever. But that got me thinking. I said, that could be something. And it actually turned up better than the block that I had, because that's how I found my voice, because somebody put that on me and I embodied it. And therefore, I began to carry it with some weight. And that meant a lot to me to this day. And I think that's how I got here. And I think job seekers, one of the challenges is finding a voice that they can carry. And carry internalize it, embody it, and let it be a natural part of who you are. That's a very hard thing to do. And the only reason why I think I accomplished it, because I put enough work behind it. And, when people don't put enough work behind it, or they don't really feel it, it will show in your work ultimately.
So true.
100%, absolutely. And so, having this ability to utilize your own voice in this way through your writing, through your podcast, through the content that you put out on a consistent basis, you have the ability to reach so many different people and really help them in the process of really finding, discovering, and owning their own voice. So kind of thinking about some of those lessons that you learned in approaching this particular audience today, who are, really just kind of getting started out, what maybe advice or what encouragement can you give young professionals when they are starting out to find their own voice?
Well, one, I think, and I think for your audience, they constantly hear putting the work in and working hard. And you know what? That looks different for different people. I think sometimes my generation is at fault here. I'm 60 years old. Okay. So, for a lot of your audience, I'm 3 times as old as they are. But we put on that idea, you got to work hard, you got to work hard. And for us, that meant grunting and sweating. And even if it's not physical, there's a mentality that goes behind it, that you really suffered and endured, you tarried and that you come home dirty, and really it doesn't have to look that way, because with the tools we have today, we can actually grunt and sweat a lot smarter and a lot more, and for a longer period of time if we're willing. But when you're in your early years, you change your mind a lot. You do. I mean, it's sort of like the Forrest Gump movie where he starts running and he starts to run. He's running along, and then he stops and he doesn't want to do it anymore. And everybody says, we just stopped. We came all the way out here. It says, people made all these different comments, but ultimately that's what it is. So there isn't any science to it. Sometimes you just become disenchanted. That's a word, right? Disenchanted. Become disenchanted with, just having to, that you don't want to do it anymore. And that's okay. That's okay. Just be ready to pivot and be ready to make the next change. And sometimes we have an idea. Sometimes most of us will have an idea. Sometimes we don't when you're young. Now maturity will kick in and says, maybe I should start building a bridge before I pivot. And that makes all the sense in the world. And I would think that too, if you really want to keep a steady stream of opportunities coming your way, you should always be thinking about different ways your skills should fit in different scenarios. So I think that's how people, especially young people, can get there, is give themselves a break and also be willing to explore the adventures of their lives and come about something that will make them happy for whatever time that is.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. And I think, a lot of students and recent college grads and all of that, I think they sometimes shortchange themselves when they're thinking about their careers as an adventure or in general, and, maybe kind of lose sight of the unique strengths and that voice that they have, or maybe they don't want to fall in line with the things that they know are authentic to their voice. Do you have any words of caution or words of advice for a young professional who's kind of navigating those challenges?
Sure. And I think when you're young, you've got to try a lot of different things in order to find out which voice is going to be unique to you. Now, a word of caution is you're going to hear a lot of different voices. And some of them are going to be the voices of you growing up and from your past. And sometimes you've got to say no to that voice. And use that as a guideline to, okay, now that I said I don't want to go back this way. Now you've got to search and find that other voice, and whatever voice is the loudest that speaks to you consistently, regularly, and that's the most meaningful and useful to yourself. Because, you're the ones who are going to be putting your hands to the plow, so to speak. You're going to be putting your hands in the sand and the soil, and you're going to start to manipulate it until you finally get something that will grow and that will be beautiful and unique to yourself.
Factor for yourself. Along these lines, and I have 2 more questions. The first has to do with the role of executive recruiter. I mean, the platforms LinkedIn, I've had a number of clients be tapped by hiring managers for pretty senior level roles that I would have thought wow, I would have just thought an executive recruiter would present those type of opportunities. But hiring managers are able, they've got a pool of resources through LinkedIn,
Right.
and they're able to do outreach to top talent. So what, from your perspective, is the changing role of the executive recruiter in the life of a job seeker?
Good question. 2010, after the recession and after the economic downturn, and still we were being affected, LinkedIn was sort of the place where they would complete their search as far as just making sure that that late 20s, early 30s person that they were getting ready to make an assistant vice president of isn't drinking and, making a fool of himself, right? Now it's LinkedIn is like the first place that they go. They want proof right away. Make sure that they're spending time that you do have at least the credentials, and along the way, it may not necessarily being drunk at a party that they're interested in, but they're more interested in what you're doing proactively, and as proof was the way that what you've accomplished and what your results are.
Yes.
And do you live up to that way, and who you're connected with and who your network is. Those things are so much more important now. And sometimes you even got to watch who you're connected with, because since we have this much more transparency that's expected, if you're connected to somebody that's connected to your boss and your boss doesn't think that you're an asset, he's going to tell that person. That person's going to know that job you're being sought out for. They're going to know. And I've seen that happen in several cases. Probably the one that comes to mind first, only because I'm really close to the person, was that he went, and as he applied and this company was vetting him, his boss came through and knew that my friend was involved as far as the candidate. He started saying bad things about him. So the employer had two choices. They can, listen to this guy, or they can vet him even further.
Right.
Luckily, they made the offer to my friend. And he said that you are the most vetted person that we have ever done. And that's to say that's what you've got to be ready as an executive, and executive recruiters are going to be doing. They're going to spend a lot of more time vetting. So as we see the trends going up as far as time is hiring, it's going to go from 45 days to maybe 90 days.
Okay.
You're going to and seeing more interviews that we've ever seen before.
For one position, interviewing more candidates, or the candidates who go through the process are going to be exposed to more interviews?
It could be more candidates. It could be, but definitely seeing more time.
So, okay. Mark, and in my last question for you, and by the way, thank you so much for giving of your time to the Tuesdays with Coach Mo show. It is just awesome to have you with your depth of experience here, sharing your knowledge. What have we not discussed, Mark, that you believe is important for this audience to know?
I think all in all, everybody's telling you not to give up, and it's going to be hard to hear especially there are people who've been in a very diligent search for a number of months, that those intangibles are going to matter. How you're willing to go back and make that second and third and fourth and fifth phone call to find out how the interview is going, or how the process is going, and how many people you have to connect with just to get to somebody that can give you a possible referral, or that could be of some kind of help. But I think despite all the strategies, those things are going to matter too. And people just need to be prepared for a long haul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that. Make those follow-up calls, tap into those referrals.
All those little things are going to matter, and consistency, that's going to matter too.
Nice. Yeah, which is why I say have a plan, have a framework, and give yourself some permission to work your plan and then step away from it.
Yes.
Right. Because just allowing it to wear on you. If you have a plan, because the numbers are big. I mean, if we were just looking at a numbers game in terms of outreach, I heard something like 200 points of contact may result in, 5 informational interviews, which result in 3 actual interviews, which may result in 1 job. It came from like the 5 o'clock club. And that is a number from years ago. So I can't even imagine what it is, but I share that to say, if you know that it has been quantified and 200 was kind of a number to work with from, rewinding 8 years, give yourself permission, make those calls, tap into the network, follow up, because just playing small in outreach to 5 or 10 is not going to serve you well. And so
I think people tend to put a limit on what they're willing to do. And I think that day is going to have to turn into some degree. If you're a graduate student, or even if you're a freshman in college, you should be doing scores. And I literally mean scores of informational interviews, which isn't the best name for it. They're really business conversations in hopes to advance your business transactions in the future. But all in all, especially the graduates who are in graduate schools, that's the time when you should be talking to maybe 50 to 100 people within a year's time to get as much intel about your industry that you're interested in landing in as much as possible.
So as soon as you hear rumors, it may not even apply to you, but at least you're ready.
And it gives you the freedom, I think, that if you decide you want to make a change, you've already kind of laid that foundation. And sometimes you're right, we don't get that choice. Companies, industries change and our employment status changes. But even if that's not the case, having those options, it feels like a good thing, because you're like, well, I'm not stuck. And I think feeling stuck is the worst feeling in the world for many, many people. And so just that idea of I can make a move if I wanted to is something that I think brings a lot of peace to people in the employment situation. Hey, 844-942-7866. Have you heard MIT is doing some research around what's happening as we return to the office, and they're finding that remote workers may end up getting lower performance evaluations, smaller raises, and fewer promotions than their colleagues in the office due to the simple out of sight, out of mind. And certainly the informal communication process that happens in the office, you're going to miss out on that if you're not in the meetings with other people. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking you're going to be working a hybrid situation? Are you worried about how that might impact your future at the company? Let us know. 844-942-7866. We are excited to be here with Mark Anthony Dyson, who is a career expert, and he is on a mission. He hacks and reimagines the job search process and loves helping unemployed, underemployed, and underappreciated find jobs and have people notice you. So if you're feeling like you want a little inspiration or even a little technical knowledge around your resume, LinkedIn, or your job search process, we want to hear from you. 844-942-7866. You're listening to Dr. Dawn on Careers on Sirius XM 132. And I don't know how the time has flown, Dion, but I think it's time for our pre-break quiz.
Quiz? There's a quiz?
There is a quiz, and it has to do with movies. And I know, Dion, you and I seem to have a different library when it comes to movies. Although I venture to say that everybody has seen Star Wars except for you.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
I know, but so I'm wondering if it's me or if it's you. And
it's not me.
All right, well, here it is. What do the movies Silence of the Lambs, which you've had to have seen
that.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Starring Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins, and the movie The Burbs with Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher. Now, you probably haven't seen that one.
No.
It's a cult classic.
I almost thought you said The Birds.
No.
The Alfred
Not
Hitchcock
Alfred
movie.
Hitchcock.
Have seen that.
You've seen that?
I saw both of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that's not the movie, but but I'm glad you've seen it. So The Burbs, 80s movie, Tom Hanks, Carrie Fisher, and Silence of the Lambs. They have something in common. If you think you know, give us a call at 844-942-7866. You're listening to Dr. Dawn on Careers on Sirius XM 132, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Dr. Dawn on Careers
on Business Radio.
Welcome back to Dr. Dawn on Careers, Sirius XM, channel 132. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn Graham. If you want to find out what's up and coming on the show, you can follow me on Twitter at Dr. Dawn Graham, because we're always posting about our exciting guests and topics. So if it's Thursday, noon Eastern, guess what? We are live in studio at 844-942-7866. And I think we just have to get the torture over with. And Dion.
Oh, boy.
I know. So I'm glad you saw Silence of the Lambs. So it gives you at least a little bit of a clue. But
Sure it does.
Yeah, well, what does that have in common with the movie The Burbs, which stars Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher and Bruce Dern? I mean, there's a lot of famous people. Corey Feldman is. I mean, these are.
You were a big Corey Feldman fan, weren't you?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't a fan of the Coreys?
No, I wasn't, because I was. Don't forget, I was a hair band fanatic. So they made me a little too preppy for me.
Yeah, that's not the same person.
Yeah, no. So I was. I mean, I love the movies. You know,
I've never seen the movies.
They've been in a lot of movies together.
Yeah.
License to Drive. They've been in, what was that vampire movie with Kiefer Sutherland?
Yeah, I'm sure I didn't see that either.
No, you had Lost Boys. You had to see Lost Boys.
Didn't see that either.
What were you doing in the 80s, Dion?
Well, I mean, I was
learning to walk.
Exactly. I mean, I was in the 80s for 6 years?
Mm-hmm. All right. Fair enough.
All right. These two movies, they were set in the same place, like suburb of city in Virginia, I think.
In Virginia?
Because I think Silence of the Lambs was in Virginia.
Because of the FBI.
Yeah.
Because of Quantico.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
But okay, I see your logic. It makes sense. If you haven't seen The Burbs, this is going to be a hard one. Dana, have you seen The Burbs? I'm going to guess no.
I haven't seen either of these movies.
Oh, my God.
Dana's younger than I am.
My guess was going to be that they take place in the same place. So we are just striking out here.
Look, me and Dana, I feel like we should get a ding just because we had the same answer. And we haven't talked.
Is this a new thing? After 6 years, you guys are gonna have a ding because you have the same answer.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna say thumbs down on that, but okay. Mark, you don't have to play if you don't want to, but have you seen The Burbs? Have you seen at least Silence of the Lambs? Dana, I have to.
Both those movies are a long time ago.
Yeah, they are. All right, fair.
I have a wild guess.
All right, but now that you just called me old, but
I feel
okay.
like I feel like he's probably going to be right for some reason.
You basically just called me out on air.
Oh wow! I'm going to guess both movies had something to do with the basement, but other than that, would be it.
Yeah, no, that is true. There was a basement in both movies.
I love when you try to spin.
I mean, the plot was surrounding what was going on in the basement, but I don't think that would be particularly it.
No, it wasn't it, but I think that deserves a ding, Dion, because that's at least a true statement.
And it goes with your type of answer where it's just like something random.
No, this isn't random. This is actually this is true.
Well, they're always true. That doesn't mean it's not random.
No, they're not always like there's sometimes more than one answer, you know.
Yeah, there's that.
But this is so okay, well here it is. It's Darla. Now, who is Darla? Darla is a toy poodle who played Queenie in The Burbs, and she played Buffalo Bill's small white dog in The Silence of the Lambs.
And that's not random?
I mean,
Buffalo Bill's dog?
All right,
really?
I was going to give you another shot, Dion. What was the dog's name in Silence of the Lambs? Come on, he says it all the time.
I remember him saying it puts the lotion on its skin. I don't remember the name of the dog.
All right, Mark. Come on.
Yes.
What's that about? Mark's like, I thought we were talking about careers here. I'll give you another hint. Gollum says it a lot in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, never saw that.
Oh my God.
I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like the same people that saw Star Wars saw that, and I'm not either of those people.
All right. Well, I'm feeling like I live a life that like nobody understands.
No, look, I know that most people have seen these movies. I know I'm different. It's just what it is.
Yeah, but between you, Mark, and Dana, I'm the oddball out here.
Well, there is that.
Oh, well. Well, the dog's name was Precious.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. See? All right. I guess you should just get back to career stuff because I'm
You're striking out here.
Yeah, this is not going anywhere good. 844-942-7866. You can always count on us for fun trivia, which we loosely tie to the career topic by saying if you're looking for interesting conversations in your networking, maybe you can use this, but don't. So we are so excited to be here with Mark Anthony Dyson, who is a career expert. He is founder of the award-winning blog and podcast, The Voice of Job Seekers, prolific writer, speaker, and podcaster. Mark is on a mission to hack and reimagine the modern job search. And Mark, where can people follow you, read your articles, see your podcast, and all of that good stuff after the show?
The Voice of Job Seekers is a great place, thevoiceofjobseekers.com. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there hanging out a lot.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You do LinkedIn Live, so you are there a lot. Definitely you want to follow Mark if you're in a job search or if you just want to create some career insurance around your long-term career. 844-942-7866. What do you think about returning to the office? And is it going to create a situation where people in the office get more raises, promotions, and more projects because they are in the office versus being remote? What do you think? 844-942-7866. So, of course, since we're doing this show in Philadelphia, Mark, I have to look at one of your articles that said, channel your inner Rocky to land the job.
Wow, that was a long time ago, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I know. I was going to ask Dion if he actually saw that movie.
Of course I saw Rocky.
Oh, well, of course.
I mean, I tapped out, around Rocky Balboa. That wasn't that good. 5 wasn't great either.
See, this is why Dion and I, we just really don't know each other. Like, I don't know who you are. How you can know that much about Rocky, but not about Silence of the Lambs.
Because Rocky was a better movie.
No, I know I'm ticking off a lot of people in Philly right now, but
there's going to be a riot outside the studio.
We digress. So tell us about how you should train as if you're in a boxing match, Mark, for your job search.
Yes. Well, I think probably the key these days is that a lot of punches are going to be thrown at you in the form of silence, and you've got to be willing to weather those punches and avoid them if you possibly can, but at least endure and push through them. I think there was a time when, well, at least the Thriller Manila, where Muhammad Ali and George Foreman were fighting in that particular sense, in the way that they were, George Foreman was trying to throw all the punches he possibly can, and Muhammad Ali baited him until he got worn down, and then he was able to beat him in the 8th round. And I think a lot of times job seekers should be able to take those punches, but you've got to avoid them too, and avoid getting hit. And sometimes those hits are in forms of silence, so it's not the fact that you're getting rejection, but the silence is rejection if you're not getting anything going on at all. So, if you're active, you can actually bait employers, through your network, as we talked about before, and being active and digging deep, and that way you can, come out on the other side.
I love it. I love the energy that analogy creates, that you're kind of moving, you're working it and ducking and all that stuff, because I do think that's a lot of what the job search is. Let's face it, just like you will in a boxing match, you're probably going to get hit, and in a job search you're probably going to get rejected. Things aren't going to go well, and you have to kind of expect all of that, yet be able to dust yourself off and get up and get back in there for another round. And I think that's what makes the job search so difficult and so draining, is that you have to be ready for that. But sometimes when you set your expectations to know that that's going to be part of the race or part of the situation, that can really, really change your perspective. So I love that analogy, and I think we need to go to a mailbag. Dana, I think we have a mailbag.
You've got mail.
Yes, Nolan in Connecticut says, Dear Dr. Dawn, I'm really struggling here. As an older worker, 61, I feel like I can't catch a break in the job search. While I'm highly skilled in operations and supply chain, active in nonprofit boards, and have a history of continuous education, I feel like I continue to get passed over for younger candidates. Having managed my money well, I'm pretty flexible in compensation. So what am I doing wrong?
Ooh, that's a good one. Thank you, Dana. So just to kind of recap, Nolan is an older job worker, and it sounds like experiencing some maybe age bias in the job search. And it's interesting because even though he's willing to take less money, or maybe even a job that's at a lower level, not getting any love from the employers. Mark, what are your thoughts on this?